Open here one second.
Yes, it started.
Okay. Okay. For the presentation. Okay, so let's get started. So I initially thought that I would go through some of the DLL internals in terms of looking at the content serialization DLLs as such, because most of the times when we get errors, it's useful to analyze DLLs, right? Like sometimes, not always we get answers in the web, so it's always good to look at how the code is written and what is covered in each of the DLL. So what I am planning to do is initially I'm going to present a few error scenarios I encountered, and then instead of guessing how do we get into the DLLs and find out how those errors are thrown. So I will what I will do is I will cover a few error scenarios first. But before that, this is how the Sitecore content serialization DLLs or the whole Sitecore content serialization is set up. This is a high-level diagram wherein when you use the PowerShell command, like we'll see what are the PowerShell commands. I guess most of you would know what are the Sitecore serialization command and all that, but we'll also take a look what are the commands as we go. But initial as a high-level overview, you normally have Sitecore CLI, which is the command prompt wherein you issue PowerShell commands, and those PowerShell commands actually go like you need to have a module.json which follows the schema.json. So then based on that module.json, your request actually goes to the Sitecore serialization client DLLs, and then the Sitecore bin DLLs, and then the kernel. And then you obviously have, based on your show config.aspx, based on the databases that you have, the database list, the connection to the database is open and all that. So we will see this in detail as we go with examples.
Naman, sorry
Hello.
to interrupt. Are you sharing your slides?
Oh, you're not able to see my slide?
No, we cannot see.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Just a second. I think I didn't click the share button. Probably 1 second. Are you able to see my slide now?
Yes, we can see now.
Thanks. So yeah, so this. Okay, good. So this is the high level diagram that I did for content serialization, but what it actually means, it would be good if we can look at some of the examples and then we can come back to this. But if you, I mean, this is actually new to me also because I have not dived so much deep into the DLLs until for the last 1 month or so, where I started looking at the kernel and mainly in terms of Sitecore serialization, I started looking at those DLLs, what they do internally. But as I said, let's get to the next slide and then come back to this. So when you install Sitecore content serialization, there are a set of commands that you pass from the command prompt or the PowerShell commands. These are the DLLs that get installed. These are the bin DLLs, and then there is the plugin DLL. So there are two parts to it. Like One is like a client, and then there is a server. The server is nothing but your bin DLLs. That's what I call it as the server. And then you have the client DLLs, where it is like a subfolder within your folder, where the development folder, where from where you actually issue the commands to serialize and all that. So this is the folder. The left side is the folder where you have all these plugin DLLs, which are the client side DLLs. And this is the place you have the schema and the module.json. And this is the place where your serialization commands or your pull push goes to finally, right? Because from here, it has to go to the server, and then from there, it contacts the kernel. Then the kernel talks to the database. So think about the kernel as the core functionality, which has all the repository related commands or get database, get and all those stuff. So when you hear about it, obviously you can figure out that you can talk with master database, you can talk with your core database. So there are methods for that. But then to do that initial work of pulling the configuration, you have the sitecore.configuration, which takes obviously your configuration details, and then it finds out the database and then connects to the database and all that part. So kernel that's why important. It's a big deal. You might have seen, most of you might have seen, it's a very heavily sized DLL, and that's where, like when you talk about the SaaS based model, right? So everybody asks the question, how will you break down kernel? Because kernel is really big, and that's where our core functionality is. So there's a lot of talk about it. So if you see that in the LinkedIn chats, okay, so there are some questions. Okay, I will not get distracted for now. Okay, so so that's where the kernel is really important. But let's go ahead from here. So so if you look at your, actually we should have, actually this is a two-way process, right? Like we can obviously start from how the schema file is generated and then talk about this, or initially talk about all the structure and then go to how this is getting generated. But yeah, we have taken the reverse approach where we are seeing what gets generated within your development folder. Like this is in case you have a development folder, and there will be a .sitecore folder getting created, and under that there will be the schemas. The schemas are what your module.json are built. If you think of Unicorn is all XML based, but here everything is JSON based. So if you have, I think that's a very good blog by one of our, I forgot our Rohan. Yeah, Rohan has written a good blog on Unicorn where you can see the foundation layer structure, feature structure, and all that. In fact, I referred that to form my own JSON files for each of the layers, because in either ways you have to build the JSON or the XML file for the initial serialization, right? So that's where a tool is really helpful. So let's come back to that later. But then your JSON file should have a schema like this. So each of your JSON file should have a schema like this. If it doesn't have the schema, then obviously it's going to fail. I'm not sure if there is something very similar to this in Unicorn, but in JSON, at least because I've been spending a lot of time recently on content serialization, this is right in a folder there in the development folder structure, and you can see the schema. Let's jump to the next one. So as I said, let's see a few errors and then understand the whole structure of the initial slide that I put there. We'll see how that fits into the whole scenario. So let's look it in form of a few errors. So this first error that I got, wherein I passed a wrong DB name in the module.json. I got an error. So that error was this. This is a very common error. I think I've seen this even when I was initially working with this content serialization. But the error is when I'm trying to pull Sitecore serialize pull, I get a database did not exist error. And when I analyzed the code, obviously I used .peek. I could find only one place that had this whole of the DLL. All the DLLs I opened, like all the DLLs with regard to Sitecore content serialization, I opened, and then I could find only one place that had this error. So if you see this, it's trying to create a get the database. So factory.get database obviously is in the kernel. So it tries to get the database and it's not able to create the database obviously because it's null. And that's why it's showing database did not exist. So if somebody wants to take a shot rather than me talking too much, can somebody take a shot as to where your database list is there in the config? Okay. So are you able to see this? Connection string.config is actually the place where you have the database list. Okay, that's a good one. But the other one, what I am trying to ask is, there is a, I'm not talking about the actual database connection strings, but the list of databases. So so when you say factory.get database, it goes to like it try in this case, if you see, it's going to the like, let's go to the next slide. How can I skip this? It's a bit slow. Okay. So when you look at factory.get database, it tries to get the database from the back end, passing the database name that you pass. So this comes from your config file, where for the serialization you have a config file. So there you list databases like master and core, because those are the two databases used for serialization. Web is left out. So if you pass a wrong database there, then obviously you'll have a mismatch. Like it's not able to find the database because that's not there in the structure. So it throws that error actually. So so this is the place I was talking about, wherein if you go to sitecore services.graphql.serialization.config, you'll have the list of databases. You can see that coming from this patch. So you have these two patches. So one is for master and the other one is core. So if you pass a wrong database name apart from these, then you get an error. Like for example, while creating the module.json for one of the layers, if I pass XYZ, which is not at all there, obviously instead of core, this item I created in core, so I passed XYZ. So what happens is it passes this value to this particular databases list, and then it's not able to find that specific XYZ. So that XYZ gets passed here as a parameter. Then it goes and checks whether XYZ is there here. In this case, it goes and checks whether databases/database, and it passes XYZ. But then it's not there in this particular list, right? So that's where the error is thrown actually. So if you go and check, so database did not exist because my config file has only master and core, but my module JSON, I'm hard coding XYZ, which is not at all there. So showconfig.aspx will have only those two master and core database, but then my module.json, which is a client file, right? I have passed XYZ. So that's where the failure occurs, and then the database obviously comes back as null, and that's why you get this error. So this is one of the errors. I've taken a reverse approach. The actual approach would be from here we go backward, but then I have put it this way because I wanted to show the code flow. So yeah, so that is one of the errors. So what I did next was passing a wrong database to kernel. So if you look at till now, it has not so far passed to kernel. The call has been only in the client DLL and then the serialization DLL that is there on the server side. It has not gone to the kernel because obviously it is stopped before that, right? Like it has cross-checked. It's not part of these two databases, so it's filtering out and say database did not exist. Now the next step, what I did was I went and manipulated the list of databases. So instead of putting Sitecore, master and core, what I did was I went ahead and manipulated that name itself so that I wanted to see if I pass something from the client side, whether it understands that. So at this point, what it did was it went to the kernel and went to the backend and tried to create a database of that particular name. And obviously it failed because backend did not have such a database called XYZ. We have only core, master and all that, right? So it failed there because it tried to make a API call and it threw an internal server error. So if you look at the order of that error, so I at first checked the show config, and this was the error thrown in the show config.aspx. So post condition failed. So when I looked at the code, I could find only one place having post condition fail, which is against, if you look at it, it's part of sitecore.kernel, and that is thrown from a method called result not null. So so the result is not null basically because there is an error coming from the server side, which is the kernel DLL, which goes again, passes your string to the backend, and then there it's not finding the particular database and it throws this error. So again, this again uses the get database wherein it's passing your database name, but then after that, it goes to the backend, the same method, get names, and then these are all called in the stack. If you look at this, if you go back, if you look at this here, you have result not null. That's what is throwing the post condition not fail. But then there are other failures that are happening, right? SQL server, link data provider. Yeah, I'm not able to remove that actually. Somebody asked me to annotate and I annotated. I'm not. I remove that.
Is anyone aware about that? How to remove that?
It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Like if it is taking time.
Yeah, it's not moving. Not able to move to the next slide for some reason. Fine. Yeah, so these are all the other methods that are there as part of the call stack. So the whole call stack gets a method gets called and all of these fail. But then the main reason is that it throws a post condition fail because it's not able to find a. This is what I was talking about. I made a change in the serialization.config file itself where instead of passing core, I passed XYZ. So your web.conf, your show config will have this name, but then backend obviously does not have core. So it goes till kernel and then it fails and comes back. So, and that's the the weird error that we get, like post condition fail, because it's not able to find a database with that name. So you can see the call stack here. So that's the other one. So now we have seen that there is a client. We have not seen the client part. We have seen that there is Sitecore serialization DLL call, then there is the kernel call. So we have to see the Sitecore serialization client DLL. So for that, what I did was I again passed a wrong DB name, but what I did was, instead of passing master core is there, right? Instead of passing core, I passed master. So if an item is in core database, I didn't pass core, but then I passed core master, sorry. So when I pull it, I got this error, configure source item path. So it's relatively self-explanatory compared to the other ones. So it indirectly says that it's not able to find the item in the master database in my case. So when you go and check that, it's part of the Sitecore DevX serialization.client DLL, and that's the error, configured source item, where it's concatenating the path and all that stuff. So I passed master in the the module JSON. So each layer feature, like if you create something like a banner, then you have to have a module JSON and then put what are the tree structure that are supposed to be serialized, right? So your feature, each feature has to have a template like this. So foundation has to have a template. So you go and manipulate there. So that was the error. So the other thing is, if you pass a database name instead of small case core, if you pass capital C core and then master with a capital M, it doesn't understand. It still throws an error, and the error was the same. Database did not exist. So we need to be careful about that. Typos, we can't pass wrong case sensitive data. It's very case sensitive. So when you go back again now and look at the whole if you go back to this PPT now you can understand that there is a module.json which is specific to each of the layers, each of the project, Visual Studio project, and then from there the call goes to client DLL. That's why if you pass a wrong database name, wrong in the sense that the item is there, but then you pass master instead of core, it goes and gets filtered the serialization client DLL, and then the call goes to the serialization actual DLL, which has the comparison with the show config and sees whether the database is present or not. And then you have the kernel call where it makes actual call to the database and then cross checks the presence of a valid database. So for that, we have these DLLs that are involved in the whole process. Obviously, there are a lot of other stuff, functionality in terms of GraphQL and all that. But then in our case, in this specific scenario, it touched upon DevX serialization.client DLL, DevX.extensibility.dll, and then obviously this kernel DLL. So let's push forward to the next part. So let's get to Sitecore content serialization. So here is where the different commands that are part of content serialization I wanted to go through. So the first command that you issue, like for example, you create a folder called C:/SCS test. Okay. In order to set up serialization, the first command you issue is .NET new tool manifest. So what it does is it goes and puts a .NET tools JSON within the .config folder. So that's the role of that particular command. So it just creates this more of a .NET PowerShell command, which creates a .NET tools JSON with config folder within the config folder. So the next one is, the next command that you execute is .NET tool install CLI. So it goes and installs Sitecore CLI. So what it indirectly does is it within the .NET tools JSON that was created in the previous step, it updates the CLI version. In our case, the latest version is 3.0.0. So it goes and updates that. After this, the next command you issue is .NET Sitecore init. So what this does is creates the schema files that we talked about, right? Like we talked about creating the there's already existing a schema file. Your module JSON should be similar to that schema. So that schema file gets generated. Then there is the settings.json, which has details like what is the folder name of your serialization, where should it be serialized, and all that. And then there's a sitecore JSON file also gets created. So let's look at the content of those after this. But this is the order. The first one, you create a .NET manifest, and you specify the NuGet package where to pull the DevX serialization from, and then you do a .NET sitecore in it to put the schema files and the JSON files. After this, this command is connecting to your sitecore instance, specifying what is the authority URL, so that it gives access to that to a particular user.json file where the token gets stored. So every time you don't need to go to open the sitecore instance. So instead of that, it goes and stores in the user.json file. The token is stored there, and you're using the user.json that was created in the previous step. So you specify in once your login details that get stored in your user.json file. After this, you issue the plugin add extensibility serialization command based on, if you remember, we passed the myget path previously. So from that path, it pulls this plugin and it stores in your local folder. So this folder is really important. It's within the plugin folder. That's where you have the package cache and all the NuGet and the local DLLs we talked about, right? The client DLLs, they get stored in this particular folder. So this is very important. So this is the final command. So after this, you have your client client folder with all the DLL set up properly. So now you also are connected to the sitecore instance. So now you can send commands. So after this, if you write a sitecore SCCR help command, you'll get a list of commands because you have a plugin set up. You have connection to your sitecore instance. So those are the main aspects of this. So in case of implementing SCS in a Helix project, I used Helix Base, which is an example of a Helix project. So you can go to this particular repository. There is a rename.ps one there. So you can rename as you wish. So what I did was I renamed it as my project base. And then after that, it was fairly simple. I got foundation, feature, and project layers. And it also had some sample JSON files, some module JSON files. So next, let's jump to Module Explorer. There is something called a Sitecore for Visual Studio Module Explorer. But then the only thing is, as a package, it's part of Razzle and all that. So that's $449. And then you have just the TDS and the Sitecore for Visual Studio. The Sitecore for Visual Studio plugin is what has the Module Explorer. So Module Explorer is used to create your module details, then rules for your modules and all that stuff. So it's a UI that you can put in your Visual Studio, and then you can, for the specific project, you can create all this, like similar to our TDS, they have a similar UI and you can have it for the specific project. But when I initially wanted to play with it, I found that there's not a specific SVS. It's just part of a bundle, right? And then I once, actually last year, I got Razzle thinking that that's a $399 or something for the whole life period. But I think it's only a 1-year license, if I have understood properly. I'm not sure because I got an email sometime 1 month back saying that my license has expired and I have to renew it. I was particularly shocked. So as an individual, we will not be able to afford that the kind of money for just Module Explorer, right? And then it's part of a bundle. So that's where I thought, why not we build something on our own so that at least we can see. Most of the times, in case of Unicorn also, the rules and all that can be tricky, right? So, and then most of the times we have templates, layouts, renderings, and we have one folder there. And if we understand the rules properly, then we don't need to think too much. We can easily allow a tool to do the work for us. So that's where the whole thing started. So that's when I started creating the Module Explorer. So there are so these are the few things that it can do. It can install your CLI, like the commands that we saw previously, right? Like .NET tool manifest and all that. It's all part of one PowerShell script, so that you don't need to issue one after another. It's a bulk command that goes and does the job. Um, I also saw that I currently have some issues in terms of the ASP.NET web application not able to launch the PowerShell because there is a PowerShell.invoke command, and at that point, due to privilege issues, the command PowerShell is not launched. But then, even if you can generate a script, that is useful because all you have to do is have a side by side a PowerShell window and run that script rather than executing commands one after another. So it generates all this user.json and at least it provides a script to install all this, and then it goes and obviously creates the default JSON for each of the layers within the Helix pattern based on the Helix pattern, and it provides a UI where it shows your JSON side by side as you write the rules. You can also validate your module JSONs, or in other words, you can go and copy paste your own JSON and then save that. You can even do that obviously with in the file system locally. You can save the JSON file, but it's part of the UI. So you can edit the rules. There's a rule explanation, sync and serialize options. It's not licensed, so that's one thing. Yeah, so you need to configure a project source path, and then on a button click, it creates currently a PS file, and that you can install in a PowerShell command. Then yeah, there is a sync and obviously with sync and serialize, it's about sending Sitecore SCR push and Sitecore SCR pull. So those are the two commands that can be done even side by side in a window. So it gets installed as a module in the control panel, and then when you click that, you have the module rule viewer and editor where you can specify based on what is there in the Helix folder. It automatically fills this JSON files, and then you can specify each of the templates and apply rules, and then you can validate the JSON if you are adding something here, and then you can sync and serialize those options over there. So some of the issues that I faced while working with serialization, was like I sent a wrong ID server URL, and then that was throwing an error, and it took me a lot of time to find out it's because of a wrong ID server. So things like these can be foregone because the tool automatically generates this script for you, and you don't need to put the ID server URL or the CM instance URL. So I mean, I'll push this to GitHub, but I can show a quick demo. Otherwise, we can stop here because we're already 3. I think I never saw the time. I think we have half an hour or more, right? So I think we have time, right? So now I will just run through the tool. So currently this, I've configured this tool to my local folder where I have my C: projects, and then my project base. So this is my Helix base cloned folder. So here I can, so these are the, like if you look at this .config, this gets created as part of the first command that you said, like .NET. You see the list of commands. So these are the commands. So .NET tool manifest, which we saw, which creates the folder, each of these folders, like the config folder, Sitecore folder, then the user.json. So what I'm going to do is I will cover a couple of steps in generation of this file. Part of the Helix-based project. So I'll delete this because this gets generated by the application. So now, so SCS, or I can go through taking some time to load. I will show it in my local environment. So this is the URL SCS module rule editor.aspx. So this gets installed. You can install it as a module. I have not created the package, but then once you create a module, it becomes part of the control panel, and then from there you can access it. So because my local project folder, which is C:projects, it doesn't have this sitecode.json and all those initial setup. So I'm getting that button now. So for example, I'll move side by side. So here I don't have the sitecode.json file and the sitecore folder actually. So if you don't have the sitecore folder, config folder and all that, you get an error. So what I'm going to do now is when I load this page, it gets created like it's 312. So when I load this page, it got created. So what I'm going to do is run that particular script. So it automatically gets creates this config file, sitecore folder. I log in and provide the access. So it has created all the required things in my local folder. So you can see that you have sitecode.json, you have the config file. Right. So one thing I have to the user.json, it's still a sample. I have to so it automatically fills your path because this picks up from the config file. It goes to your config file and finds out your domain name and then the identity server. It fills that value here. Then make a change in one place wherein so yeah, so this one should be SRC star star. So this follows Helix template pattern, right? So just putting that up. I obviously can rewrite this when I'm building that. Like I can find this line and replace this. So that's something that's pending. So this is something that have to be updated in the tool. So now what I'm going to do is, because I've got this setup, I'm going to refresh the page to see what happens to my UI. It should obviously um, so the setup module JSON files is actually disabled because I already have module JSON files in my local environment. So what I'm going to do is going to delete those. I've not specifically tested this, so let's see what happens. I've got these files, so if I have to create it newly, then I have to delete, but I should also provide an option where I can specify it should generate only for specific projects or feature or whatever. So, but then that's not there at the moment. So now I'm deleting these. Now let me check. Oh, module JSON. Good. So now I don't want to refresh anything. I'll open a new window just for. So it brings up this button basically because I don't have any JSON files in my local project folder. So when I click setup module JSON, it goes off and generates all those JSON files for different layers. So if you go now, so for all the layers, like for example, you see here like source, for each of these layers, it puts dump files. Like I cross-checked this with Helix, sorry, even Unicorn, they have templates and all that, right? The same structure I followed. Templates, under that I created a feature name. Then similarly I did. So obviously you can, now you can open your module and then edit it in the editor. You can add more, something like, for example, placeholder settings if you want, you can add if it's not there. But I have added that in case of project, like if you go to the project one, you can see this automatically gets generated. So you'll have the project as attached, appended, right? So this also, I saw how it's set up in Habitat and I follow the same pattern. So most of our projects might need the same thing. So we can obviously tweak based on our internal project structure or whatever, but then this goes and dumps this based on your thing. So now the next step is, because the module JSON is all there, I can use the serialization commands. Last time I tried, I had some issues because I was making a lot of changes. So let's see if that works. Sitecore CR. So let's let's take one of them. A lot of them, it might be confusing. How do we cross check which is working? So we can also edit the rule, but let's do one thing. I'll reload this page, allow the rule editor to come, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, so this JSON is obviously picked up from those JSON files, what we generated, right? This has to be rectified. This because this does not have any rule for this templates, right? It's like this is the one that gets the first one gets loaded, but then I've got this static, so I have to actually clear this and add. But then for the time being, if you add, like, you think you need to add some, let us keep brands as it is, but then we say anything apart from brands, we are going to ignore. Okay, so let's put star for that, right? So we say star and say this is ignored completely. So I mean, it doesn't matter whether create or update or delete or anything, because this is default. Now you say that under this custom core menu, if it is brands, then allow it. So if it is something else, don't allow. So what actually this path is not correct. It should be custom site core. I'm not picking up that path, but this is the actual path that should be shown here. But the logic is fine. Like if you have a under this main under this path, under this path, if you have a brands, right? It's like a if else condition, right? That's how it gets executed from top down, right? So if there's a branch path, you allow creation of item and descendants, create, update, and delete, right? But then if your condition goes to the next one, wherein you have something like about us, right? Under custom core menu, it gets filtered because it falls in the first else condition. So there itself it gets filtered. So you should be very careful with the ignored condition, right? So that's what they stress, that more specific rule should be on the top and all that. For example, if you had a contact us page, obviously it should have come here rather than here. So that way it falls in the first else condition and picks this contact us under custom core menu. But anyway, to showcase that it applies the rules, so that's why we have these. You see, it applies this. I could have deleted this, like delete this, and then apply rule. So that gets applied. Only contractors is still there. Okay, cool. If you want, you can remove this from here with the comma, or if you leave out the comma, it should throw a, if it is a syntax error, then it should, okay, the JSON is fine. Now I will save this JSON locally. So now if I go to this path, custom menu, I should have the changes. So 21.8, 324. So we have the changes. So we have the latest changes where I removed because that's part of, I think I saved it twice. So actually this should not be there. Yeah, so should remove this actually. This is wrong. Saved it twice, so it's not picking that up. Okay, cool. So now if you send a push pull command, it should follow this pattern and then push only what is required. So let's try SCR push. Let's see what happens. I hope it works. So there's a error with when I deleted, probably I removed a extra bracket probably. Let me check that. So there's a bracket here, bracket. Anyway, let me come back to this. I don't know what is wrong. I'm not able to see it properly, but what I will do, let me better put it back in. Yeah, it's invalid. But what is invalid? Maybe we need to have a way to track what is in. Yeah, okay. There is a. This is not closed properly. I deleted it probably. So now I save this. Okay, so now I send this command one more time. See now, did it save first of all? Oh, close with a comma. If this is needed. Okay, this is comma closed. Okay. Save this. Once again, let me go and check whether it's all fine. Hit the command one more time. References. Extra comma. You mean here? That's the one. See? References.
No, I think it's line number 21.
One, not sure if that is the issue because but yeah, I can remove that. 1 second. Path references. There's something wrong here, but I'm not able to spot what's wrong because some kind of syntax error here. A second, let me pick up a copy of this file and check. Comma references.
Now, when if it's not getting currently, then it's totally
Yeah,
fine.
sure. No
We
worries.
can,
We'll see it later. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
we can.
all. That's all for me. I don't have much, but yeah, once I
Yes.
have this covered, I will push it.
Sure, Navan. So you can just push it to GitHub and then we can
Yeah.
again share a link in the WhatsApp groups. That's not a
Sure.
problem.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have a
No.
couple of questions in the chat. So I'll just narrate one by one and you can just answer the ones. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So the first question is from Alex. Can we bypass obfuscation or do reverse engineering of sitecore kernel DLLs, as I suppose they are protected?
Hmm. I mean, is this question? I mean, in what context are we asking? Are we talking about Sitecore doing this, or what is that? Because we
Alex?
talked about, yeah.
Yes.
Because
Alex, can you just give the brief about the context of this question?
Uh,
Because there is no context as such for this. Okay, maybe we can take second question, and once Alex is back, we can ask the same thing.
okay.
The second question is, as we generally do serialization of master database, can we override that particular method and bypass master database to handle database did not exist error?
Bypass database did not exist. Those come from the kernel DLL functionality, but why do we want to do that? Just trying to understand why we want to do that. So that's a actual. You are. I mean, there is a service out there which is again kernel. I don't think you can manipulate, right? Because you don't have the code for that, right? What is the question?
Suman, do you want to add anything to this question? Like what came to your mind while asking this question? Okay, no problem. The next question is your JSON file custom one where you have a specific specify the database name?
JSON file, a custom one. Yeah. See that JSON file, we can make changes as we, maybe the question is, yeah, that's where actually the tools help, right? Somebody who doesn't know, he can put X, Y, Z in the JSON file, but in the module, you can have two options like core and master, and then you don't even touch the JSON file. That's the actual idea actually. Currently it's open. JSON file, you can write anything, and then or you have to copy like how we do, right? In Unicorn, we'll copy from somebody and then put it there. Then sometimes we don't even know what we copied. It will lie there. In the other project was there, so we have it here. So that's where this I think is useful, where you can select and more streamlined data.
Okay. The next question is, if I disabled OWIN file for authentication, do I still need to authenticate from here?
Do I still need to? No, that situation we have to rewrite, right? Like whatever your authentication provider, or you have a different. I'm currently picking up from, as you said, from the OWIN authentication config. But as you said, if you're changing that approach and adding a new config file, then your identity server URL needs to be picked up from there. I'm just, because it's a generalized scenario, I'm doing it for that. But yeah, as you said, if it's a different thing, you'll write it differently.
Okay, thanks, Naman. So next question is, what changes do we need to make in order to use this tool in future Sitecore versions, maybe Sitecore 10.2 or 10.x?
I don't think you need to, I mean, that's another thing that I have to try. Like I did for 10.1. I don't think you need to make any changes because, see, it's as simple as that. I didn't overwrite any DLLs that are there in my bin folder. All that is there is my ASPX page, and I have a separate DLL for the code behind. So I'm not using any Sitecore DLLs. I'm just writing to JSON file. So until unless your structure changes, the JSON, which will not change obviously, so we won't have any problems with that. I don't see any issues actually. Maybe I'm short-sighted, but this is what I have written. So based on that, we won't have any.
Okay. Thanks, Naman. So next question is, SCS looks really similar to Unicorn. is there a specific difference why we may have to consider using SCS over Unicorn?
See, uh, I saw SES is there. I saw Unicorn. So I wanted to master the concepts of SES. Best way is to do something and see, right? So I just built this. So it depends what in your environment, what they're planning to use or what is the way forward, right? So this is just for this scenario. Instead of if we had like as you said, like if there is Unicorn had that page where you can serialize and all that, so why not build a similar page for SCS also rather than using a plugin? So that's the whole idea. But yeah, it depends on what your environment needs, right? So
Yes, correct. Also, next question is on similar lines. Do we consider migrating solution using Unicorn to SCS?
yeah, I've done something in those lines. But see, the problem with these things is, right, you need to have a couple of projects, and it might have tweaks here and there based on your environment. So you need to get real-time scenarios. Now what I am doing is I am seeing what is there available generally, and then I am building something, but it will get the real shape only when we have engagement where there are 2 or 3 projects, everybody uses it. So like many of them are moving from Unicorn to SCS means then we can obviously do that. I wrote something. I started with that, but then I thought this is more useful and then switched over to this. But for Unicorn to SCS, you can obviously have a PowerShell script also do that. So we need to have the scenario first. This is more like a starting point. That's all.
Okay. Next question is a general one. Are you planning it to publish it to Sitecore Marketplace?
I will have it in my. I'm see. To be frank, I don't know. Sitecore Marketplace is that active because everybody now these days put it in their own GitHub and then they give module details, right? I am not.
Yes.
Yeah. So
No,
outdated, right?
Sitecore, yeah,
Uh,
Sitecore Marketplace has totally stopped. You cannot upload any new
correct.
modules there. It throws an error page,
Mm-hmm.
and the Sitecore team suggests that you host it on GitHub till they have a new site for Marketplace.
Okay. Okay. That's a good answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay. The next question is, are there any inputs on plugging in SCS to Jenkins or any CI build tool?
No, I have not think. I mean, we have to think in. We have to get that far and do it, right? Like this still, I'm getting errors at this point, so I will first freeze. Like I initially just thought I would just put the rule editor, but then you always get excited, right? Sometimes when you why not do this also and all that, then you want to go one level above what something is already there. Like I saw, I didn't get a hand on my SPS or the SCS Module Explorer, but I saw that they are not doing the generation of module files and all that. So I wanted to go one level above that. But as you said, uh, now I know I won't do anything more than this that I've covered. So I will just try to fix all those errors and then start using in some of the projects. That's my goal actually.
Great answer. So I'll just ask like which were the good questions you liked so that we can select winners of this good question category.
Oh my God, there are a lot of questions I didn't I didn't even keep track of what are the questions. Maybe you are the one reading, right? Probably you can select it.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I'll select one who asked about migrating SCS to Unicorn,
Hmm,
and
that's
the
fine.
other one. Okay, I'll go with Suman and Vinay. Please share
That's
your
fine.
email IDs in the chat, Suman and Vinay.
Yeah, nice.
So yes. So now, Navan, you can select, go to the participant list on your screen and
Oh,
try
okay.
to select 2 members. Now I'll just tell you the names whom you cannot select. Okay. First
Okay.
is yourself, then SCG India, Vinod. These are 3. And since we have given awards to Vinay and Suman already, so these 5 people you cannot select. Rest out of 8, I think we have 13. Out of remaining 8, you can select any 2.
Sorry, how do I get to that Participant list. Sorry.
Can you see participants where you see the, okay, you need to stop sharing and then you'll be able to.
Okay, cool. Stop share.